Hi, my name is Richard Bortnick, and this is um, my presentation along with Andrea Berry. We did our presentation and our project on cerebral palsy. Overview of cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is a condition of impaired muscle coordination along with other disabilities, typically caused by damage to the brain either before birth, during birth, or even after birth. There's not one certain cause of this condition, and in fact, most causes are not even known yet. Uh, strokes can also occur with babies either in the uterus or before 1 month of age. The treatment can help this condition, but unfortunately, this condition cannot be fully cured. It is a lifelong condition. Some of the risks of cerebral palsy, there's actually many risks that come with this condition. Some of these being premature birth, low birth rate, blood clotting, infection of the mother, bacterial infection of the mother. This can either directly or indirectly attack the infant's central nervous system. Prolonged loss of oxygen during pregnancy or birth, and many, many more. Who's at the greater risk? According to the current sport medicine, cerebral palsy affects about 0.2% to 0.3% of all children. And out of this 0.2 to 0.3%, males are at a higher risk than females, being 57% are male, while 43% are female. Also, premature babies are at a greater risk, small babies, and twins and triplets are all at a greater risk of getting cerebral palsy. How does cerebral palsy affect nutritional needs? Cerebral palsy can affect the muscle that move and open the lips, mouth, tongue, making it very difficult to eat or drink. Since this condition impacts motor skills, it makes it difficult for one to hold a cup, move food from plate to mouth, and use utensils. And you'd see how not being able to move food from the plate to your mouth or without being able to use utensils, that'll make it extremely difficult to be able to eat many, many types of foods that most of us would eat. Some individuals with this condition are unable to take food through their mouth and have to be fed with a feeding tube, which ultimately requires surgery to be able to have a feeding tube put on. The effect on nutritional value continue. Those who have been diagnosed with cerebral palsy suffer many issues with nutrition. Along with those on the previous slide, here are some of those additional issues. They have frequent infections, which may cause them to be hospitalized and therefore affects the way they eat. As we all know, if you've been in a hospital before and had to stay overnight, or really during mealtime, hospital foods aren't really the most nutritious, and you're kind of forced to eat like Jello, pudding, soup, and it's not really that great of food, which may cause you not to eat that food anyway. Also, the food may need to be a modified diet. The food may need to be softened, moist, or even blended up, so that way they can swallow it and digest it. Also, they may rely on others to feed them. As said before, they might not be able to use utensils, so they might have to have somebody else feed them. They also have really high nutritional needs due to them having that condition. Their body's fighting off diseases and infections, which needs more nutritions to be able for their body to be able to function to do that. They may also have a poor appetite due to constipation or reflux. And since one with this disorder has many complications, it may cause them to have lengthy feeding times if you have to blend the food up or wet it down or feed them through a feeding tube, it may take a lot longer than one just being able to sit down and enjoy a meal by themselves and not really relying on anybody else to feed them. How does this condition affect physical activity? Well, first, people with cerebral palsy usually want to be physically active. However, it can be very challenging for them. Cerebral palsy can affect one's body posture, balance, ability to move, communication, and I stated before, even eating patterns. Um, if you're having a hard time balancing, having a hard time moving, having a hard time communicating, and if your body posture is bad, you really probably don't want to go much of anywhere, and you really don't want to do anything with it being that difficult to really live an everyday life. Since cerebral palsy affects the body in so many ways, it can be extremely difficult for one to engage in physical activity. However, not all individuals are affected the same way. Some may have weaknesses in their arms while others have it in their legs. So, with that being said, if one has weaknesses in their arms, weakness in their arms and not in their legs, if their legs aren't really bothered, they might want to still go walk in and play kickball or go for a run or go outside. Whereas if you have weakness in your legs and not in your arms, it may be very difficult to walk and participate in outside activities, and you might just want to stay inside all the time. Depending on where on the body it is affected the most, ultimately depicts on what they can and cannot do. Physical activity continued. Those who have cerebral palsy can experience uncontrollable movements, weak or stiff muscles, and even shaky movements and tremors. Like I said before, having uncontrollable movements or weak and stiff muscles, that can make you not want to go outside if your legs aren't strong enough to hold your body up, or if they're stiff that you can't even move your legs, or if you don't really know when your body's going to make a movement that's uncomfortable, it may prevent you from wanting to go outside. And not only does cerebral palsy affect the muscles and movements, it can also have an effect on the bowel and bladder control. And if you never really know when you're going to have to go to the bathroom, or if you can't control when you go to the bathroom, it might prevent you from leaving the house due to you being kind of scared or nervous or worried or maybe even embarrassed that you're going to end up using the bathroom in your pants out in public and being afraid you're going to get made fun of. That can have an effect on you as well. Also, 1 out of 3 children with cerebral palsy are unable to walk, and they are at the greatest risk for vision impairment and having a difficult sitting without help by the age of 2. So if you're unable to walk, that really puts a damper on your physical activity. And also, if you can't really see what you're doing, that makes you not be able to like throw a baseball or play kickball, because if you can't see, you're kind of afraid you're going to hurt yourself. Next is treatment and management of condition. Cerebral palsy is a lifelong disability, but there are treatments to help reduce its impact on your body. There are interventions for all aspects of the disability, which I'll explain in more detail in the future slides. These interventions are interventions for movement disabilities, for muscle, bone, and joint difficulties, for communication issues, intellectual and learning disabilities, epilepsy, pain management, sleep issues, behavior and emotional issues, and eating, digestive, and nutritional needs. I'm not going to make a slide or talk about every single one of these interventions on all the slides. I'm just going to talk about the most prominent and major issues that they have. The first is movement, muscle, and bone. Treatments or interventions for movement issues can be reduced with the use of surgery, medication, or uh, physiotherapy. Physiotherapy is the use of equipment for movement training, helping them be able to move certain parts of their body more effectively, um, which we may have seen, or you may have seen this in videos. You may know somebody who has been in a wreck and or having to relearn to walk or something, but it's like a harness that wraps around you to help you not put all your weight on your joints and your legs at one time. And it helps you learn to walk without having to without bearing all your weight and kind of putting you down when you can't do it to begin with. And as for the muscle and bone issues, surgery can also be used as well. Along with surgery, splints, casts, and muscle strengthening may be utilized. Communication disability. In order to reduce the communication issues, one may go through speech pathology. During this, they will uh, help individuals understand what is being said and learn how to use words in a sentence. This training may involve the use of augmentative or alternative communication systems such as signs, boards, and speech devices. For signs, you'd write it down, and boards, you'd also write it down what you wanted to say. In speech devices, you'd actually use like a computer and type in what you want to say on the computer, and then it will actually speak and play out for you what you're wanting to say. Um, for pain management and behavioral issues, pain management, they may go through cognitive behavioral therapy, take medication, and massage therapy. Massage therapy is only a short-term temporary fix for pain relief. It'll maybe last 1 to 2 days and maybe even a week. As for behavioral issues, they go through behavioral therapy. Eating, digestive, and nutrition. For this issue, may require surgery, medication, and dietary advice. As said before, some may have to use a feeding tube, and non-oral feeding may be necessary. This is only required if they have difficulty eating on their own and it was unsafe for them to swallow food. So if their primary caregiver is kind of worried that if they eat something or maybe throughout the day, if it happens multiple times while they're eating and they get choked up on their food and they're afraid they're going to choke and not be able to do like the Heimlich maneuver on them and everything, they may be required to have a feeding tube. Dietary advice simply helps the individual know what they need to be eating and when they need to be eating, since they have such or they need such a high nutritional meals every day to help fight those infections. Advice may be necessary. Also, long-term effects. Those who have cerebral palsy unfortunately have the risk of a shorter lifespan. Um, they may also experience long-term effects of chronic physical impairment. This may include increase of spasms, seizures, muscle deterioration, increase of back pain, tight muscles, reduced energy levels, and many more. Other information, I forgot earlier to mention that there are actually many forms of cerebral palsy, and these include uh, quadriplegia, which means it affects all your limbs, both your arms and both your legs. Diplegia, which means both your legs are affected, not your arms. Then there's hemiplegia, which affects just one side of your body, either left or right. Um, then there's spastic, which is motor cortex damage of your brain. Um, Dyskinetic, which is basal ganglia damage of the brain. And then ataxic, which is cerebellum damage in your brain as well. And then there's lastly the mixed type, which is a combination of the different ones. So it can be like 2, 3, or 4 of these put together. Um, and that's the end of the presentation. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you have a good rest of the session.